I'd like to welcome you back to my life writing course and poetic autoethnography course. In this workshop, we're going to learn some of the aspects and pieces that will help you to do your first draft of your poetic autoethnography. We're at the process where we're writing a first draft, and this video workshop is designed to support that process. The outcome of this will be a written first version of your poetic ethnography, and also I'd like you to understand the structure and components of a professional poetic autoethnography research paper. So these are quite obvious things, but I would like to say them. First off, this is going to take several sessions. You can't just sit down and write a poetic autoethnography in one sitting. That's not a reasonable expectation for any research project, and poetic autoethnography is the same. I think this is the second point, though, I think is more important. You're not reporting on your findings, right? You have data in the sense that the actual writing process itself, as you do it now, this is where this really becomes a research method. The writing is part of the methodology. I said this early in this course, and I'd like to repeat it here. This is the most important thing to remember. If you're going to do this, you must be brutally honest with yourself. You're trying to work out what it means. This is your experience. This is your life. Don't play what I often call sort of presentational games. Find out really what happened to you and try and understand it, and you will benefit, and the people reading your poetic autoethnography will benefit. So I think it's useful to have an understanding of these sections which go into a professional poetic autoethnography. I'm going to go over them here, but probably I would suggest that at some point you stop the video and just take a picture or a screenshot of this particular slide so that you have a sort of map in your mind. So first off, there's an introduction. You specify the topic and the aim of your poetic autoethnography, and that I think is true of any research project. But you also want to position yourself in relation to your presented research question. Why is it that you are the person to answer this question? You want to do a literature review. You want to review the academic scholarship relating to your topic and your research question, and consider what this means in terms of your own experience. You want to describe your methodology, describe all the stages of research that you have employed and any additional data that you have collected. Explain what each stage involved. And here we get to the main part of the autoethnography, the main text, the poetic autoethnography itself. You want to present your images, describe your experiences and your reflections on the whole experience. You want to interact with your flow of emotions, interpretations, relationships, and beliefs. You want to try and understand the stages, feelings, and influences on how this developed. And the presentation does not have to be chronological. In the coming slides, I'm going to add to this description, but this is a good starting point just for you to understand what needs to be in this section. And finally, you need a postscript. Having finished and presented your poetic autoethnography, you need to tell your readers where this work has left you and what it means to you. What happened to you as a researcher as you work through this process of poetic autoethnography. I always suggest this, and I suggest this for any writing process. Find a quiet, calm room, make yourself coffee and tea, make yourself as comfortable as you possibly can for the writing process. Before you start writing, I think it's a good idea to read the Poetic Autoethnography. This is the one I suggest, but there are many others that you can find. But I would find a good Poetic Autoethnography. You can put my name in Google and find several of them, and you can find people who reference my work, and you'll see that they also have Poetic Autoethnographies. I think reading and looking at an exemplar is a good way to get going. I'd like to say a bit more about the main section, and I'd like to divide it up into three stages of a writing process of sorts. I think it's more of a thinking process than a writing process, but it of course interacts with both of those. The first stage, and I'll elaborate on all three of these, is to construct a collage of experiences. The second is to construct a sonata, an emotional I would say, flow of your experiences. And number three, I think is very important to embrace your vulnerability and ambiguity in your work. So, a collage of experiences. Choose an experience to start your writing, present the poetic image and describe the experience, and then do this for all the different experiences you have in your poetic autoethnography. So basically you have a series of sections, if you like, and then consider the presentation of each of the experiences. Is it real to you? Do you understand it? Are you accurately conveying the emotions of the experience? What are the different ways in which this could be understood? And I'd write and rewrite each of the individual experiences until you are satisfied that they present an authentic, valid description of what happened to you. Now let's consider a sonata, a flow, and particularly a flow of emotions. Consider the themes and chronological development of the experience you are describing. What are the connections between all the events and experiences you are describing? Feel in yourself the best emotional flow of the different pieces you have written, how they interact, what types of emotions each one elicits. Construct a progression of the sections which embodies an emotional and conceptual movement or flow. Try moving the sections around and feel how the flow changes. Choose the progression that most closely embodies your feelings and understandings of your experience. It does not need to be chronological. And in some cases, chronological works, but in many cases it doesn't. And actually, things that we experience do not happen in that way, that they're so chronological. So, think about it. Try to create a flow of emotions that works for you. I think this is particularly important. Read through the full progression or movement of the sections and ask yourself the following questions. Have you created a narrative that is too coherent, too cohesive, and this is the important piece, too safe? Are you protecting yourself by avoiding to discuss certain experiences or interpretations? What other ways of understanding and presenting the experience could be included? We try to tie down all the ends, we try to make it coherent, make it cohesive, and it does need to be coherent and cohesive to a certain extent, but don't make it too safe. Don't avoid the ambiguity of what living life is actually like. Don't avoid the pain. Don't avoid the embarrassment. Don't avoid the joy, which might be, and don't avoid the confusion, which is part of living life. So rewrite your poetic autoethnography whilst embracing your own vulnerability, and don't be afraid of ambiguity, multiplicity, or subjectivity. At this point, once you've done all this, you should have a first draft of your poetic autoethnography. So thank you for listening. I will congratulate you when you actually finish your first draft, not just listening to me talk about your first draft. But please go forward. This is the moment when all the different pieces come together. And I hope that you really find this a rewarding and emotionally clarifying experience. With that, I'll say goodbye for now, and I'll see you in our next video.